Now, today is the World Day for Safety and Health at Work, and the International Labour Organization is calling on countries to put in place sound and resilient occupational safety and health systems that would minimize the risks for everyone in the world of work in the event of future health emergencies. CEO, Occupational Health and Safety Managers Ehi Iden joins me here in the studio, and via Skype from Enugu is Julius Akpong, Security Professional. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ehi. Let me begin with you. All right, Julius Akpong, thank you for joining us. Now, let me begin with you, Julius, since you can hear me now. COVID-19 has shown how devastating the impact of a pandemic can have on the safety of workers, and not just health workers, but across the board. What lessons especially can we draw and how, such that we need to understand how important it is to ensure the safety of workers at a time such as this?
Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to be here. Yes, COVID-19, like you said, has dealt the world a big blow, and the International Labour Organization, in following up with this structure, has put up for this year, because 28th of April every year, that is today, is usually marked as the International Day for Safety and Health at Work. So to handle that, first of all, this year's topic is arousing people to anticipate, prepare, and respond to emergencies and crises, and through that to set up resilient occupational safety and health systems at work. So the lessons we have learned, which have brought the world to this level, are that first of all, the world was not prepared. So our biggest lesson from history is that we learn very little from history. And the learnings that we have from history, we do not put adequate plans in place to prevent that they repeat themselves. And so in line with the ILO is a tripartite organization which is made up of countries, employers, and their employees. So, I mean, it involves all of us. And what the message is that the lessons are devastating and the world should gear up, beginning from when you are planning an activity to when you are executing that activity to when you are checking to see that you are doing.
Julius Akpong, okay. All right, Julius Akpong trying to help us better understand the lessons we have learned. Perhaps you want to, talk about that as well before we move forward with the other issues.
Yes, those are very clear issues that Julius Akpong has brought up. I mean, we were not prepared for what happened, and even if we were prepared, what has happened with the pandemic had dismantled what we thought we had as a system.
Right.
So we need to learn from what we received, I mean, at this point, and trying to plan a future that we can say we have is resilient, I mean, to stand against pandemic when they come. And mostly workplaces, if you recall, even the isolation where remote working became a very big issue. I mean, workplaces were not prepared for all that. I mean, we're talking about flexibility of work many years, even before now. Workplaces were not responding. But when the pandemic came, people were forced into isolation to work from homes and what have you. And these are changes that came with the pandemic. But now, are we going to have another form of pandemic or crisis like this? Yes, we have to just anticipate it. Yeah, anticipate it and make plans for it. It is better and safer for us as a whole if we plan for them and they never happened than not planning for them and they happened. So this is what the theme of this year's event is talking about. Then we need to start talking to countries, systems, to start making investments in resilient occupational health and safety system, and we don't have that in many countries, even in organizations.
Now, that brings me to the next issue, because we, like Julius Akpong pointed out, we celebrate this day every year. And one wonders the kind of commitment we have had over the years in terms, if you're trying to evaluate or assess how far we have come when it comes to occupational health safety. Because you mentioned the fact that what we thought we had has been eroded with the pandemic. How committed were we before the pandemic, and afterwards from the pandemic? What lessons do you think, what have you seen improved from the lessons drawn out of the pandemic?
I think before the pandemic, I mean, many countries and many organizations didn't see the importance of occupational safety. But as the pandemic came, it became obvious that we needed occupational safety as a very key issue that we almost drive together. And the lessons learned, I mean, there are different fields in occupational safety, which of course we overlooked. And now we found out, like occupational hygiene, occupational hygienists, we didn't see them as very what we needed, but now we've realized how much we need these people within the system. And the lessons learned is that even policies of countries, when you talk about countries or companies' policies before now in occupational safety, you hardly can really find infection control as part of policies. Yes, you have this in the healthcare because that's where we only look at where the infections are. But infections broke the barriers, and it wasn't the healthcare people. I mean, you could see even organizations, a doctor could be walking in, but it's a security man that's checking doctor's temperature. That's a swap of role. So we realize right now that it's not just about infection being in the healthcare system. Every policy needs to have a strong component of infection control. That's one clear thing we have learned right now. And also in going forward, we need to also understand the fact that the crisis, I mean, it's a cycle. It comes and goes, and anticipate for the next one. So we need to build people and capacity to be able to respond to those crises as they come. Because some of the issues we actually had, which of course overwhelmed us, I mean, take the healthcare as a clear example. The safety of the healthcare workers was not really at the front burner of discussion when we talk about workplace safety, because it was now we realize that the healthcare system primarily as a workplace before it became a place where people can go for healing. So you see the healthcare system workers were all overwhelmed. But now we're reviewing the system. What really happened? How can we protect people better? If pandemic comes again, if we have this crisis, what are the things we need to do? What are the things we need to put in place? For once, I mean, if even in Nigeria here, you can see how NCDC rose up to the challenge. Now we cannot say we have policy on infection control in S and S sector. So they were sectoralized based on what has happened. And these are the key things we need to pick up in going forward. We had Ebola. Yes, we responded to Ebola, and Ebola was defeated. But we didn't have the system in place. But what we have right now, based on what has happened, I mean, with the system that have been built, I mean, collaboratively across the world and across regions and within countries, I think this is good enough, lessons we've learned. And I think in going forward, not after the pandemic, we all go back, it's now Uhuru, we all go back to our sleeping beds. We must keep building on this, ensure that our systems are able to respond to crisis should they happen again.
Perhaps we need to understand what constitutes this occupational health safety systems. Julius Akpong, help us better understand what they are so that those watching might know where to focus on moving forward.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so the resilient occupational health and safety systems come in different facets, but like I earlier highlighted, there's a basic framework which is called the PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, and Act.
Right.
So when you are setting up an organization or you have any small group or gathering where you have brought people to work or to undertake any activity, the first thing you want to do is to start, first of all, by ensuring that there is a plan on ground for their health and safety. So when we talk about a plan, we are talking about having a policy, a safety policy on ground for those people. We are talking about writing having safety procedures, and not just writing books like our people do and putting them on the shelf, but training staff through the things that you have put in place for them to ensure that they understand what arrangements you have made. For instance, if somebody is going to go to site and do welding, it's not when they want to go on site that you want to start planning what they should do. Is from the stage when you are setting up that organization, putting up resilient systems, is that you have done your best to, first of all, write a procedure, train the people on how to do the welding, what do we need on ground to do that welding, and what other activities, if they are happening within the region of that activity, need to be done to ensure the people are safe. What personal protective equipment do they need? And then after planning, when they are doing the task, the work doesn't stop. So you continue communication. Before they start, 5 minutes before they start the job, there's a small toolbox talk to remind them of the hazards in that place. First, even before they start, there's a risk assessment that is done. to ensure that, you know, if anything can go wrong, those who have done that type of job before, who are qualified to do it, they can't ensure that that place is safe. And whatever is there to make the place unsafe is corrected before the people are now allowed to come in to do the task. At the check phase, what we are doing is to check that people who are doing the task are actually following the plans that we had made already. And when there are lapses that we identified from that check phase, what we now want to do is to act to prevent those things from becoming injuries. So we act to close out whatever shortfalls that we find in our plan. So the PDCA approach is best. And you can implement such a system by following up with the now agreed and generally accepted, globally accepted system for occupational health and safety management system. That is the ISO 45001-2018, which was released on the 12th of March 2018. It's a fantastic system. It has 10 clauses, and for any serious-minded employer who gets onto that system, employs a safety professional to take them through the implementation of that system, I mean, they are sure to not just pay lip service to health and safety, but to actually protect life and property at work. The world does not have options right now. We cannot do otherwise right now. As a global community, we have to avoid killing people at work. Currently, 2.73 million people die at work every year from occupational health and safety incidents. That means about 7,700 people will die on the average by the end of today from these kind of issues, and not just accidents, but also workplace ill health, you know, at the global workplace. Our world must be kind to its citizens, and business leaders, captains of industry must do their best to ensure that these systems are implemented and to keep, you know, I mean, the very valued assets of the world, the human beings, and then, of course, the properties that we have developed, to keep them sustained. Even our SDGs 2030s will not be effective if by now business leaders are not thinking about implementing, you know, robust and resilient occupational safety and health systems at work. So it doesn't even end with just reading on Google or listening to TV. It's important that safety professionals are employed to see to the implementation of these systems.
All right, let's bring the conversation to the studio now. Before I get into the implementation aspect, ensuring that there are systems in place to check implementations across the board when it comes to organizations implementing what he just mentioned. He mentioned something that if you employ people within a space, and I'm wondering, is this just limited to the workspace when you talk about occupational health safety? You find, for instance, people say that they were coming to work and they had an incident on the road. Is it that it's not supposed to be taken care of when it has to do with issues like this?
Yeah. That's where people always miss it. When we talk about occupational health issues, occupational accidents, most times we always feel is what happens within the workplace. If you employ anyone as an employer, you owe that person a duty of care to protect that employee. If your employee leaves his or her home coming to work, and along the route there's an accident, from ILO guidelines and standard is classified an occupational health accident. From the point where the person leaves his or her home to work until the person comes back to her home, his or her home safely, is classified, because the person has no reason to leave his home. I mean, you left your home this morning because you have to come to this place.
Absolutely.
On your way here, perhaps there was an accident. We should take it as an occupational accident. It's not because you just wanted to be on the street as early as 6 a.m. in the morning. It's because you have a place to go to work. So it's not just all that happens within the workplace. That's why we rely on training, because defensive driving is also part of occupational health training. Yeah, because if you have to drive your company's vehicle or a vehicle, you must know what to do on the road as well. Because when we talk of occupational health and safety, it's not so minute. It's is so holistic that it covers a whole of aspects of employees that are within your care. And this is how it is. So it's not just about what happens in the workplace. If employees coming to work and had an accident, from ILO guidelines, is classified as an occupational accident as well. Okay,
so that brings me to the next question, Julius. Are there systems in place to ensure implementation of all of these measures that you mentioned earlier across institutions?
Thank you very much. And thanks to my friend, Mr. Eden, at the studio. There are systems in place, but you see, there are three basic reasons why organizations should implement health and safety. The first one is the moral reason, which is the fact that as an individual, as a human being, I owe you a duty of care to protect you from accidents as you work for me. The other one is legal, that the law will come after you. That's where in places like Nigeria we're having an issue, because you see, even the legal frameworks that are in place, the issues that are put in place, like the laws that are in place, the penalties for those laws, I mean, you would prefer, if you only look at the legal reasons in Nigeria, the penalty will not be enough. The penalties of the laws are not enough to push people to do the right things. And so we still have our Factories Act 2004 as amended, which at best is not prescriptive. I mean, it just gives you overviews. I mean, high-level overviews of what is expected at the workplace. And employers are smart, so a lot of them, with the prime focus on just making financial profit at the end of the day, a lot of them boycott these things and explain them away. And since the law is not really prescriptive, is not giving us, to detail what is expected to be done, and the regulations backing up are not so strong. So these things are challenges, and that's why safety professionals are pushing for a bill which we have in the National Assembly, the OSH bill, which is expected to really give impetus to the legal stand on how to implement, because people only, on this part of the world, people only yield to enforcement, legal enforcement, to be able to do their duties as required under the law. So we need help nationally in this direction. We need help from the National Assembly, the National House, to help in this implementation. Secondly, we also have a group, an association of safety professionals, who would have added their voice to this and really make it work. That's the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria, which is currently laced with all manner of issues, ranging from greed to lack of knowledge and the goodwill to see themselves progress. So these are the things, these are the frameworks on the ground. And then the other thing that some employers are not understanding is the economic reason, which is that if you effectively implement health and safety systems at your workplace, you will reduce the number of accidents that are happening. And accidents cost money. So if you prevent them from happening, you can retain the profit emanating from your business. A lot of employers are not understanding this because they are waiting for these accidents to teach them. Usually, when the accidents finish teaching you, your business does not survive them. So at the end of the day, employers need to understand the moral reasons, the legal reasons, and the economic reasons for implementing health and safety. This is the way to go. Absolutely. So as to give impetus to the implementation of those systems.
All right, Julius Akpong, security professional, thank you so much for speaking with us. Let's come back to the studio for your final word, Ehide. One of the focus this time is the aspect of investment. Yeah. And you know how we do when it comes to investment in this part of the world. The issue is always the fact that our economy is not doing so well. So talking about investing in health safety is a challenge. So how then can we build investment how can we have that investment for resilient systems? I'm
happy this question came after Julius really that the three imperatives that we must follow. The truth is, whether we like it or not, we have to invest here. I mean, he highlighted it all. Head or tail, you never lose as an employer if you invest in safety. If you say there are no funds for investment as of today, when you lose workers, and we have a good judiciary system, and you're taken to court, and the litigations you have to face, the loss of your brand name, and other costs that will come with it, direct and indirect costs, is so huge. We need to start investing in systems so that, one, we can preserve human beings, because it feels so sad when a parent sends their children to school and they come out of school with the hope of those children being able to take care of them or live a better life, even, in going forward. And the child comes out of school, the first 6 months of employment, the child gets accidented and get maimed and may never be able to work for the rest of his life. I give you an example, a case that we had some time ago. An engineer, electrical engineer that had a 2-1, right? And it was ready to do his master's. The first job he had, he had electric shock that has led to him being an amputee of both hands. So when you look at such case, that's an engineer. So how will he work in practicing engineering in going forward? So these are the critical issues. We need to invest in safety so that our workers can be preserved and our business on the long run do not go incurring undue costs that we don't need to incur.
Quickly, are there activities to commemorate this day?
Yes. For today, from Osh Africa point of view, we are doing an African event, and what we're doing is that we're doing it on Zoom. So our partners across the world are joining us. We have Nile, South Africa. We have Netouch, Europe. We have African Regional Labour Administration Center. We are all coming together on Zoom. As at this moment, we have over 400 people ready to register for that event that will last for 2 hours. By 10:10, that will be starting, and we'll be able to actually have a resolution at the end of the day that we can actually send across all the African countries and see how government of these countries can start working with what we have arrived at, so that we can actually make our workplaces better. All
right, we'll leave the conversation here now. CEO, Occupational Health and Safety Managers, Ehide. Thank you as well.
My very pleasure. Thank you.